12 o'clock. I am Shelley Kunishige with the Hawaii Department of Transportation. And just thank you for joining our Hawaii Statewide Transportation Plan virtual public meeting. Just to advise you, this meeting is being recorded, and I am going to introduce our Deputy Director for Administration, Tammy Lee, to say a few words.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our third of four public meetings. Thank you for taking the time to come in and meet with us. So I know that we've been kind of updating our Hawaii State Transportation Plan for some time. It's really a policy document. It's multimodal. It's statewide transportation planning. We're super excited. Thank you to Kathleen Chu and her team for helping us out. Thank you to Dr. Punt and Masa for helping us. I know that I became involved initially when I was with the Highways Division on some revenue forecasts. So it's really cool to see it all come together. But again, I just want to welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Tammy. And as Tammy mentioned, thank you everyone for taking time out of your day to join us in discussing the future of our transportation systems for the next 25 years. It's really important to get feedback from all of you because our transportation system serves our communities. And so the update of the Hawaii Statewide Transportation Plan is being led by our consultant team from Jacobs Engineering Group, Bowers and Kubota, and C. Yoshida LLC. So this next slide you see here reflects our agenda for this meeting. The presentation is around 35 minutes, and then we are going to have a random drawing for a $50 Longs gift card. And we're going to use the names and phone numbers that we see listed here. So please hang in and stay with us. And so our goal for this meeting is to get feedback on the draft Hawaii Statewide Transportation Plan. And on this slide, we do have a reminder of some of our protocols. Please keep your computer and phone on mute. Try to use the raise hand function on MS Teams to speak if you have a question or comment. And feel free to use the chat room to share your thoughts. We'll have someone monitoring it and taking notes. And we're also going to have Q&A at the end. And so as you can see too, right now, Shelley has posted in the chat information about Title VI. So if you could please fill it out. It is voluntary, but it does give the DOT information on the communities that we are able to reach out to with our public meetings. Also, what one of my team members will place in the chat is also the link to the draft plan and a link to the HSTP executive summary. So on the next slide here, we show our project work plan, and this was used to develop the HSTP. This work plan does show the major tasks that have been completed and the step process that was designed specifically to gain input and validation by the key stakeholders that you see listed along the way. And so now we're going to give you an overview of the draft HSTP, and we're going to do it kind of chapter by chapter along the way. So in our first chapter, we tell the story of the HSTP, its purpose, and how it was developed. And so the HSTP is a requirement of Hawaii Revised Statutes 279A, which establishes a framework to be used in the planning of Hawaii's transportation system. The plan helps to establish a comprehensive multimodal statewide planning process, which really determines how our transportation system serves the state, its people, its community, and how it addresses social, economic, and environmental objectives. The development responsibility of the plan is the DOT, which was developed in coordination and collaboration with our other state agencies and city and counties. This slide here shows the DOT's family of plans. Many of you may not be aware of all these plans that exist. And so the HSTP is really the kind of the overarching policy document for all three modes of transportation: air, water, and land. And it sets the policy for the state. The next set of plans that you see moving from left to right is the statewide system plans that are developed for each mode. Oh, excuse me, if you mind, yes, thank you. Oh, can you please someone can put themselves on mute? So the system plans, we have the air is covered by our statewide airport system, and water, there's master plans for each of the harbors. And for land, we have a statewide long-range land transportation plan, as well as regional plans. And there's other supporting plans, like there's airport facility master plans, there's Oahu Regional Transportation Plan, and there's other modal plans like Bike Plan Hawaii or the statewide pedestrian plan. And as these plans get developed, they lead to programming and projects. So ultimately, at the end, all the way that you see in the green on the far right is when projects are actually selected, designed, and constructed. On the next slide, you see how the HSTP influences and provides overarching policy guidance to the county's general plans. And it also shows how the regional land transportation plans provide regional direction with the community development plans and functional transportation plans in each county. So this next slide, along with our work plan that you saw earlier, reflects this real step-by-step development of the plan. The HSTP follows this plan development process chapter by chapter, really discussing trends that were explored, the development of goals and objectives, looking at the different alternative futures, exploring strategies to see how we can best prepare for the future, and how are we going to move forward. Chapter 1 also includes our vigorous public involvement plan, which shows how others were engaged in the development of the plan. So this slide reflects the 5 stakeholder groups that we had and its organizational structure. And so as you can see, as our outreach to the public, we've had a variety of public meetings. We had a round of public meetings earlier this year when we first released the goals and objectives. We have a project website that we can provide a link to in the chat. We were also conducting a public survey earlier this month, and later I'll show you the results of that survey. And now that we have the draft plan, we're having public meetings. Now, Chapter 2 describes the state's existing transportation system and illustrates the need for consistent policy direction, coordinated planning, and maintenance to provide reliable service and seamless modal transitions into our future. Our statewide transportation network includes airports, harbors, and roadways. The DOT operates and maintains 15 airports throughout the state. This includes 11 commercial and 4 general aviation airports. This section of our plan outlines the passenger, craft landing, freight, and mail statistics at each of the airport facilities. Now, approximately 60% of all of our goods consumed in the state are imported, and over 95% of these imports pass through the DOT's 9 active commercial harbors. So on this next slide here, it shows our harbor network. This section of the plan outlines the amount of cargo processed and also includes the number of cruise ship passengers that pass through our harbors. The land transportation system is a key to the movement of people, goods, and services statewide. It's an integral component in providing reliable connections to modal transitions between destinations. And some of you might be wondering, what is a modal transition? So a modal transition is when you go from using one type of transition to another. So for example, you could walk to a bus stop and then you could catch the bus. So, at the bus stop, that's a modal transition. There's also, you can get off an airplane at our airport and you can transfer to a car. That is another example of a modal transition. So in the entire state, we have 9,800 lane miles of roads, and 25% of these are maintained by the DOT, and the rest are maintained and operated by the city and counties. Although the DOT has only jurisdiction over 25% of the roadways, they do service approximately 60% of all the vehicle miles traveled. Another important component of our transportation network in our state is our transit systems. Each county is responsible for operating and maintaining its own public transit system. Now in Chapter 3, we talk about the goals and objectives. The goals and objectives are a critical part of the HSTP. They represent our plan's vision and are intended to support the vision for our state and the mission of the DLT to help shape its future. This slide defines terminology underlying the goals and objectives framework. And for the purpose of the HST, remember, it is a broad policy document, so our goals do represent a broad focus. Overall, there are 7 goals in the HSTP. And this next slide here shows that each goal is supported by objectives that provide details on how to achieve the goal. And all of these goals build off of, the previous HSTP, but they've been refined to meet the future challenges that our state will face. Now, collectively, these goals and objectives constitute our vision for the HSTP 2045, and they have guided the development of the strategies and recommendations that are included in the plan. These goals do take into account input that we receive from key stakeholders, input from all of you, and the objectives, which I'm going to show later in this presentation with the strategies. In Chapter 4, we introduced the concept of scenario planning, and we summarized the process that was used to create 5 alternative features that helps our state prepare in order to meet these goals and objectives. So why do we do scenario planning? Instead of attempting to predict the future, scenario planning takes into consideration and helps the state prepare for uncertainties and potential disruptions by thinking about a wide range of plausible futures. Exploring a wide range of plausible future scenarios instead of just assuming that a historic trend will continue into the future enables the development of strategies that are robust and adaptable to any unexpected disruption or change. So the initial development of the alternative futures started out by reviewing existing data and trends and research, as well as examples from other states. And the emerging trends that were reviewed are pandemics, climate change, demographics, economy, technology, development, and land use. And details on all of these trends are included in the plan. These key trends were then used to develop 5 alternate futures. And so this plan includes visions of what Hawaii could look like under each alternative future and how that might affect each of the modal divisions, air, water, or land, and what we need to do to prepare. So the 5 alternative futures include, business as usual, where nothing changes, a global health crisis, where pandemics become more frequent, power in paradise, when we receive our energy independence, a climate emergency where there's more frequent storms, and technology revolution where we see more connected autonomous vehicles and in general, just automation all around us. Now, Chapter 5, where do these strategies come from? The emerging trends and alternative futures were used in tandem with the plan goals and objectives to develop a robust set of strategies and actions. They also were developed from existing plans and studies, peer research, best practices, and input from agencies and all of you. For each goal and objective, policy-level strategies were developed. In addition to the strategies, Chapter 5 includes some of the existing actions that the DOT is already doing to achieve that strategy, as well as new potential opportunities that can be undertaken by agencies to help meet the strategy and ultimately our objective and goal. And since we do have a lot to cover today, and I do want to be respectful of your time, I'm just going to go over the goals and objectives, but you can see the full list of strategies and actions in the draft plan on our website. So for this, we have the safety goal, provide a safe and secure multimodal transportation system. Our objective is to eliminate transportation-related fatalities and serious injuries and protect against serious threats to our transportation system, users, and facilities. For infrastructure, we want to provide a high-quality, well-maintained multimodal system. Our objective is to maintain the multimodal transportation system in a state of good repair and to modernize our transportation system. For mobility and accessibility, we want to improve mobility and enhance access to destinations. Our objectives are to reduce delay and improve reliability across all modes for all users, and improve access to destination for system users across all modes. For the economy, we want to support a vibrant and changing economy. And our objectives are to serve Hawaii communities through efficient and reliable goods movement and distribution, advance and diversify statewide and local economic development, and improve efficiency and convenience of our inter and intra-state travel. For resiliency, we want to anticipate and adapt to climate change, storms, pandemics, and other disruptions. We want to enhance resiliency of transportation systems to the impacts of climate change, public health crises, and other disruptions. We want to improve emergency preparedness, response, and evacuation. For our community, we want to support equity, public health, and the quality of our life. For the objectives, we want to enhance safe, convenient, and affordable options for populations with high transportation cost burdens and limited access. We want to support public health and quality of life for Hawaii residents. We want to facilitate equitable participation in transportation decision-making. For our environment, we want to protect and enhance natural and cultural resources and reduce climate impacts. Our objectives are to improve and preserve the quality of air, water, land, and other natural and cultural resources. We want to support the statewide goals of carbon neutrality and 100% clean energy by 2045. In this next slide, we share how we apply the scenario planning and the alternative futures. So in order to make our strategies more robust, a matrix was put together to qualitatively assess how the strategy would perform against each of the alternative futures relative to the business as usual scenario. And so the ratings, as you see here, were given to each of the strategies under each of the alternative futures based on how effective they would be in helping us reach the alternatives. This exercise led to a development of a couple of cross-cutting strategies where these strategies just showed that they were more important across all the futures and all of the goals. And one of these is to identify secure, flexible, and sustainable funding for transportation, right? How are we going to pay for all of this? And the second strategy was also made by request of the multiple agencies that were involved during our technical resource meetings. And it was to really expand our interagency collaboration and interagency sharing. So as I mentioned early, some of the outreach that we did early on was public survey. And I thought I would just share some of these results for you because we just thought it was interesting and we wanted to let you know that we took your results in and we looked at the strategies to see how we could tweak it to respond to the public survey. So around over 600 people responded. So in this next slide, the question was, on a scale of 1 to 5, tell us what approaches should be the highest priorities that we can do in our state to achieve a resilient transportation system in Hawaii. And the top response was to be prepared for responding to emergencies. The next was strengthening our existing roadway to existing stressors. And a close third was protecting our harbor system. This next question, when you think about Hawaii's airports, which of the following safety and security measures are most important to you? We heard that the public is most concerned with providing safe and convenient access at the airport, especially at those multimodal transitions to the bus or to car share. The next was to provide adequate capacity at our airports. Next, when you think about Hawaii's harbors, which of the following safety and security measures are most important to you? The top priority that we heard regarding safety and security was to increase biosecurity, protecting our residents and visitors from diseases and harmful organisms from entering our state through the harbors. The second was cybersecurity. Another one of our goals that we have is to eliminate traffic fatalities through a combination of approaches. This policy is often referred to as Vision Zero. So we asked, what are the top ways to achieve Vision Zero for the public? And the response that we heard is to improve pedestrian lighting and to increase impaired driving enforcement. Next, we asked that, we know that the DOT is concerned to ensure that the goods and services everyone needs are available to you. So in order for that to happen, our infrastructure has to be able to meet these needs. So we asked, what do you think, what approach is most important to maintain continuous transportation operations in our state? And the top three results were to protect and enhance our harbor facilities, protect and enhance our highway system, and strengthen our emergency response coordination with federal, state, and local agencies. We also asked, what should the top transportation policies be? If you were in charge, where would you focus your attention? And the public thought it was most important to build an efficient transportation system and then to enhance safety. We also took this opportunity to ask some other questions, such as what types of public engagement are you willing to participate in? And we heard from you that one of the best ways to get your feedback is through surveys and through virtual public meetings such as this. We also wanted to ask the public how they got feedback on real-time traffic conditions and learning where they got their information from. And 61% said, they're pretty often they can get the updated traffic conditions most of the time. And 67% of the public said they get the information from traffic apps or the computer. And then we wanted to know who participated in our survey in regards to where they may live. And so as you can see in this next slide, it kind of shows, a spread of where we got feedback from. We did get some out-of-state folks who answered the survey, but it was good to see that people on all 6 of the major islands responded to the survey. So in the next chapter, chapter 6, we talk about monitoring progress. Chapter 6 discusses the importance of making good, data-driven decisions, making informed decisions, and being able to report back to our partners and the public. The benefits are going to help facilitate coordination and align with other performance-based plans that we have in our state. And the second part of this chapter outlines the existing federal and state regulations to share what performance measures are already being tracked. Many of you may not realize that the federal highways require state DOTs to report on a set list of measures, such as pavement conditions and bridge conditions, and these are posted online. The state Act 100 also requires each DOT division to establish goals with associated timelines, milestones, and measures to gauge effectiveness. So in the plan, we wanted to share with you that there are some things that are already being tracked, but we know that we can do better and we can always improve. So the last part of this chapter discusses the process for creating progress indicators. The plan is going to include a recommendation that all system and master plans have performance measures or progress indicators, and that the plan will encourage agencies to be stewards of this data and to use it to make data-driven decisions. In Chapter 7, we look at a financial forecast. So please keep in mind the financial forecasts look at a high-level planning perspective of revenues and expenses for each of the DOT divisions and county transit agencies. The forecasts are not intended to be used for budgeting purpose, but just used for us to look at overall trends that we see. So the methodology included a review of financial statements, budgets, and looking at a 5-year history, which was used to develop a 25-year forecast. And the assumptions that were included and are explained in further detail in Chapter 7. So for the airports division, we looked at several scenarios for the forecast, and this is a 25-year forecast from fiscal year 21 to fiscal year 2045. So the chart that you see on the slide is the base case of the 25-year forecast. And this shows that there is a growth in operating expenses and different components of the financial analysis. So the operating expenses that you can see are in blue. And then in orange, you can see there is a large part of their capital improvement plan that is not funded yet, or the funding source hasn't been identified. So on the right, you can see what the primary sources of revenue are for the airports. Now, the project team did have to make certain assumptions on how the CIP would be funded. For example, would they float revenue bonds? And so that's why you see a jagged line for the revenue. There are some years when the bonds could be floated and when they're not, or it could represent when federal grants are received. So for the harbors division, similar to the airports analysis, the 25-year forecast shows that operating expenses compared to the CIP is broken down by different funding sources. And the CIP estimates were based for this division, the CIP estimates were based on a 3-year historic average between fiscal year 21 and 23. And this was used to forecast the amount for the following years. And again, you can kind of see the trend with the revenue, which is the black line. For the highways division, a similar forecast was done for highways. Assumptions were made about the issuance of bonds every other year, and the forecast includes estimated debt services that would be associated with the bonds issued. Forecasts for each of the four transit agencies are also included in the HSTP. So how are we going to pay for this implementation? And as you recall, one of the cost-cutting strategies was to identify secure, flexible, and sustainable funding for the future. So this portion of the plan was developed to help address this strategy. This section starts out with general principles about what you need to consider when you want to look at appropriate funding or financing for a project or program, because not all funding or financing for a project or program is appropriate for all projects and programs. So it does include a recommendation on how to screen and select the correct funding mechanism, because you do need to ensure that there is equity. You need to ensure how that funding source could impact different people. But in addition to that, we also wanted to look at how can we reduce our funding, right? It's not just about trying to get more and more money. What strategies can be done to reduce our funding need? So these are all included in Chapter 7 of the plan. Now in Chapter 8, we focus about moving forward. With all of this information, how do we move forward? Putting the plan together is really the easiest part. The hardest part is going to be deploying the plan, implementing, and creating that momentum for implementation. So the focus on Chapter 8 is a path forward and the statewide transportation planning process. Now, we all know that a plan becomes obsolete if it isn't implemented. And to implement a plan, it needs to become a part of your process for current activities. And a structure is needed for any organization to be able to deploy this plan. So to effectively implement a plan, goals and objectives need to be clearly defined and understood. Strategies then need to be organized around how to achieve those objectives. And then strategies further become mirrored down into day-to-day activities and actions. For each action, who, what, when, how needs to be clearly defined so it can be deployed. And over time, you want to make sure that you track your progress through qualitative indicators and really look at deployment in terms of How well is a strategy moving the needle? What other actions need to be taken? And how do we continuously monitor it all? Because we do know that some strategies we take may not be effective, which is why we have this continuous feedback loop, right? So if it's not effective, then we go back and we evaluate and we come up with a new strategy. This slide, again, if you recall, is our DOT family of plans, and it does show these foundational elements of what keeps this all moving. Now, the statewide transportation planning process is a structured, functional, organizational process that provides the DOT for continuing cooperative and comprehensive planning, all the way from long-range planning policy and vision to short-range budgeting and project development plans. It's the process that the state and the counties use to collaborate. And this process is meant to be ongoing to allow for both the flow down of policy, of data and progress and to be able to adjust to changing statewide needs. So this planning process is how all our agencies in the state collaborate and work together. And the guiding principle for this is to implement a statewide planning process that correlates our land use and transportation while supporting decision-making and programming for our integrated, comprehensive, multimodal transportation systems. This is the organizational structure that you see here that was agreed upon that is used to implement the statewide transportation planning process and really continue that continuing cooperative and comprehensive process. So as you know, we are conducting a series of public meetings. And again, we do want to thank you for joining us today. There is another meeting tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. So please tell your friends and families to join in. And then after that, we're going to review any comments that we receive on the draft plan. And we're going to work to finalize that plan by the end of January. And so again, we're going to post in the chat, in case you joined us late, a link to the statewide transportation plan and a link to the website. And then also we'll include in the chat a link to Title VI. So if you can please remember to fill out that form. Again, it is voluntary. But again, we also do want to thank you for your participation. We really appreciate it. We know your time is very busy during this time of year. We are going to do questions and answers, but first we wanted to conduct our random drawing. And so I'm going to turn it over to Emily Stone. She's entering everyone's names in the chat. And if you are selected as a winner, please email Emily directly with your mailing address. Please don't share it with all of us. Just send it to Emily, and so we can send you your Longs gift card. So take it away, Emily.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I have placed all your names in the chat if you are a guest. If you're an HSTP agency stakeholder, then we have excluded you since you're closely involved with the process in creating the plan. So if you don't see your name, please speak up now or type in the chat. Okay, so I'm gonna shuffle all the names. So all your names are here. It's gonna spin, and whoever it lands on, you're our winner of the $50 Longs gift card. And please email me directly with your mailing address. I will put my email in the chat. Okay.
Congratulations to Alicia Summers. Please contact Emily directly and she will get you your gift card. And so now we are going to go to questions and answers. And I do, Jojo, thank you for your input. You know, as I mentioned, our plan does support the movement of goods and services. And our plan also provides for multimodal, you know, to focus on multimodal. It is an important goal. So the movement of bikes, but bicyclists and pedestrians is important. Because this plan is a policy plan, it doesn't dive into the project level detail, but it definitely supports cargo movement, and also looking at protecting our natural and cultural. So we will take your comment that you put in the chat, and I do thank you for providing that comment. And then I guess now we'll see if anyone else has any questions. So feel free to just speak up if you do have any questions or anything. But again,
Yes, I
really
have a
thank.
question. This
Yes.
is Chris.
Okay.
So how do we get things into the plan, or how do we like, what's the process for if it's not in the plan right now? How do we ensure that things get in there?
Right. So are you talking about a policy, or are you talking more specifically like a project or a focus area? So
One of each. One is, yeah, I noticed like our groundwater is missing, which is a critical for our island to have the effect of our roads on our groundwater,
mhm.
and how they cut off the flow to the ocean. And then so I mean that should be in there. And then also most of our fish ponds, our Hawaiian fish ponds, are located
Mhm.
on the there many of them are on highways, and there's, I know, major funding, federal funding that comes for habitat restoration along highways, but if they're not spelled out in this plan, then it doesn't, the funding doesn't come. So wanted to make sure that
Okay. Those are that is great feedback, and I feel like those comments really fall a lot into our environment goal and strategies. So you can, if you see the 2 emails below, Masatomo Murata at hawaii.gov, or you can email me, kchu at Bowers and Kapoda, as Emily is using the pointer to point it out. Then send us your comments, and then we can take a look at the strategies and actions that are included in the plan to make sure that those important things, see if there is an opportunity or if an action to see, to ensure that those things are looking forward, because those all do fall into under our goal category, I believe, of the environment.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. I see in the chat, what upgrades can be expected for DLT piers such as Port Allen, Kauai, that are used by local businesses? Are these areas being considered? So system preservation is an important part of this plan as well. And so I would have to check with DLT Harbors, but that comment about upgrades, and if you recall, under infrastructure, one of our objectives is to modernize our transportation system. So that would be an important point. And so if, when the DLT does their harbor master plan, that is something that they should consider. Yes, and so thank you, Shelley, for sharing the Honolulu Harbor Master Plan, and that is just newly released. So Moana and HM asked, is there a bidding or proposal period for private companies to offer services? So this plan is just kind of an overarching policy document. There's no, I think that would be addressed through the state procurement office. And I don't know, Shelley, maybe you can help with that one. But it's not, yes, thank you. But it's not, it is not a part of this plan in regards to necessarily bidding for services, goods and services work. So thank you for all of you. Jojo, we got your second point because we are including these notes. So thank you for that. Is there any other questions? Did I miss anyone?
This is Chris again. I had
Sure.
another question about pesticides, and I know I see the folks spraying Roundup to control the weeds, and then I had heard that Roundup wasn't going to be sold at least for home use. So I don't know if that's in the plan. Anything about pesticide use and.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that is something that we can look at in the environment side. So Chris, that's a good comment about pesticide use.
Okay.
Oh, and then thank you, Shelley, for sharing that on the highways. They are phasing that out. So they.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah.
We steward the fish ponds that are directly next to the highways, so that all that kills all the fish and the limu that they eat. So it's a big problem.
Anything else? Emily, did you get the information that you needed from our?
I haven't received an email from Alicia yet.
Okay.
But yeah, I see you're still on here, Alicia. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me at my email.
Or you can call us as well. Okay, does anyone have any other questions? Well, I thank you again for joining us. We have one more round of public meeting tomorrow at 6 p.m. So please share the information and invite friends and family to join in tomorrow. But we really appreciate that you giving up your lunch hour to learn more about our transportation system in Hawaii. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you too. Great job.
Thank you.